I got your king. Nah, I'm just playing. Welcome to Touch, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. So I have the round 3 game for you between Peter Svidler and Wesley. So, of course, for all my people in the Philippines, Magandang umaga, kamusta na? Maraming salamat po sa nanonood ng aking my video and my channel. Appreciate you guys very much. Almost out tayo, 6 o'clock in the morning over there, so y'all are probably eating up y'all's breakfast. For anybody who is coming from Russia, I will say привет to you, and spasibo for coming and taking a look at my video, and как дела? Appreciate you guys very much for stopping by, and merci beaucoup for anybody that might be coming from France, because this event is held in France. So, but if you guys are ready to go, let me get my screen adjusted, because I'm not, let me see, am I good? Okay. Bam. If you guys are ready to go, let's go. Let's take a look, see what we got for the game. All right, so we got e4, e5. Knight comes to f3. We got knight to c6, bishop to c4, bishop to c5, c3, knight to f6, d3. So we have the Giuco piano, Giuco pianissimo. So, you know, Italian for very quiet game. But as you guys are aware, you know, these games can be quiet, but, you know, sometimes they're not quiet. Sometimes they're loud. So let's get it rolling. We got d6, castles by white, h6 by black. Rook comes to e1. We see castles by black. h3, bishop back to b6, knight b to d2, knight to e7. We have a4. Now, you guys are going to see a lot of maneuvering. You know, this type of opening is there's a lot of maneuvering going on. As you guys can see, you know, the knight is kind of weirdly placed on d2. You know, it would prefer to, you know, kind of be out of the way of the bishop. And, you know, this bishop is a little bit iffy. So, you know, white and black, they both have to kind of maneuver around a little bit to get themselves in a little bit better position. So we see c3 by black. c3 is just, I mean, it's just kind of like really self-explanatory. You know, one of them type of things. It's like, you know, this bishop is looking, you know, after a5, it could be looking kind of sad. So we're just giving the, you know, bishop a little bit of room to breathe here. So we got d4 by white. Knight comes to g6. We see bishop down to f1. We see rook over to e8. And we do see queen coming to c2. And queen to c2 is the novelty of the game. So 13 moves in. Now, in this position, we have seen knight coming to c4 before. And this was in 2015. It's an Alan Pichot game who was actually playing in this tournament. We see pawn takes d4. Knight took b6. Pawn took b6, and you would see queen taking d4. This isn't the line they followed in the game. This is just like an example line that it could be. The only thing that is unfortunate is because you have to protect this pawn. You are really forced to take back with the queen, and that's not really ideal. You know, you really want to take back with this pawn, but as you guys can see, it's just going to be dropping your pawn here. So that's not where you want to be either. So, you know, knight to c4 is kind of, you know, it's kind of iffy. But like I said, we did see queen to c2. We see bishop back to c7. We got pawn takes e5, knight takes e5, knight takes e5, pawn takes e5, and then we see knight to c4. And, you know, as you guys can see, you know, knight to c4 in this position is a little bit better. You know, you don't have to worry about all the pressure that was on this e4 pawn, so you're doing a little bit better here. We got a5, just making sure that as black, we stop white's expansion as much as possible. So, you know, usually when you see like a h4, a4 thing, you're going to see like a a5, h5 situation come up, you know, just to try to like stop whatever, you know, your opponent has going on. So we got bishop to e3. Bishop comes down to e6. We see b4. Bishop takes c4. Bishop takes c4. And as black, you're not really super worried about white having the pawn or the bishop pair because, I mean, we're pretty locked in the center. So it's not as open of a position as you would like to have two bishops in. But, you know, you never know. Every now and then, you know, the bishop pair can become beneficial. So we got bishop coming to b6. Rook a to d1. We see queen to c7. Bishop down to c1. You know, white is of the opinion that it really wants to hold the bishop pair. We got rook e to d8. We see g3. Now, the thing with g3 is, you know, sometimes you'll have like a knight trying to hop to h5 and then come to f4. And then you guys have a lot of pressure on this g2 point. And so, you know, g3 is just making sure that, you know, we prevent that before it even gets started. And this is like something that, you know, let me see. Anatoly Karpov used to do. You know, he was a very like, you know, preventive player. So he'd always be like preventing stuff that you weren't even thinking in your mind yet. And then when you came to thinking, you're like, oh, well, he already stopped it, so I can't even do it. So we got queen over to e7, pawn takes a5, rook takes d1, rook takes d1, bishop, or rook takes a5. We got king up to g2. We got rook back to a8. We got bishop down to b3. Got bishop to c5. Queen coming to d3. We got bishop back to b6. Queen over to f3, and this now gives the opportunity for black to try to contest the open file. You know, you never really want to let your opponent just completely have the file, you know, or the diagonal with the bishop. So you want to try to contest it, you know, make your own claim in the, you know, on the file. So we see rook to d8. We got rook taking d8, queen taking d8. We got g4, and then we see queen down to d7. And we have actually reached a point in the game that if you do want to pause the video and see what is a really nice move for white, go ahead and do so. All right, cool. So the move, and this was actually played in the game, is bishop takes h6. Now, there are many times in many positions that you can actually take on h6 or h3. And you will be, you know, winning a pawn because, you know, once the take back occurs, you're going to be winning, you know, the knight. Usually it's going to be a knight on f3 or f6. But in this particular case, you do have a really, really nice, you know, Zwischenzug or in-betweener that black can throw in, and this knight takes g4. Now, there are two different ways that you can go forward from here, and one is slightly stronger than the other. So the way that we went ahead in the game was queen took g4, queen took g4, pawn took g4, and then we saw pawn taking h6. And then as you guys can see, we ended up with equal pawns. But something that was just a little bit stronger, it wasn't like it was just like completely winning, but it definitely gave, you know, a nice little advantage, was actually bishop takes g7. And as you guys can see, the bishop is going to be leaving the board anyway. So one of the things about it, if you're going to be, if the piece is going to be gone anyway, you might as well try to go down and take as many pieces as you can with you. So bishop taking g7 is throwing a nice little in-betweener in there. King would take g7, and then you see pawn taking g4. And as you guys can see, you are up a pawn as white. Now, you do have opposite color bishops, so it's going to be very hard for you to win this as white. But, you know, having extra material, like, really just never hurts. I mean, that's the way I feel. I mean, I want some extra material, bro. So anyway, we did see pawn takes h6 in that particular position. And then we got king to f3. So bishop comes to a5. We see c4. Now, I mean, c4 is like not the move that you really want to make, because as you can see, this bishop is like crying out, like, hey, why did you do this to me type deal, right? So we got king over to f8. We got king to e2. King to e7. We got king to d3. Bishop back to b6. Throwing a little tickle on this f2 pawn here. Seeing what it wants to do. So we got f3. King comes to d6. We have bishop down to d1. Now, something that was possible as well is to push pawn here. You know, fork the king and the bishop. And, you know, force one of them to take. And then you can, you know, get your own pawn over here. You know, but the only problem with that is, I mean, it doesn't really too much do a lot for you, because these two pawns are both on dark squares, and they're doing a really, really good job at like stopping the advancement of white's pawns. So, you know, you can kind of just pick however way you want to go. So we saw bishop down to d1, king came to c5. We see bishop to c2, king to b4, bishop down to d1, king to a3, bishop to c2, king comes to b2, bishop to d1, king to c1. Bishop to b3, king to b2. We got bishop down to d1, king coming down to c1. We see bishop to b3, king to b2. And we have reached a draw by threefold repetition. As you guys can see, because of the restriction and, you know, the area down here, the bishop doesn't really have a long, like, you know, you really want to back the bishop up as far as possible, but there's really not that far the bishop can go. So it's going to be a situation where the king is just going to shuffle back and forth and attack the bishop, and you just can't make any progress. So that is that game from round 3. For all of my people in the Philippines, let me see what's up with these good mornings. All right, so maayong buntag, mayad na agahan, nainbag na bigat, masento siya kabusan, marhe na aga, buenos dias, maayong aga. Mapia na uma, kapian kapu no Dios. Mayap a abak, mayad na aga, mapia agay, and mapia kapapita, my big abukla, and I think it's Maraja na buntag, and then Maria, yeah, Maria my nat. Maupai na aga and Kasanyangan CLUB. For sure. And anybody who is from Russia, spasibo to you. Appreciate it very much for stopping by, and I will see y'all next time.